The family of Gilles Jacquier after that terrible news, and to all the others who've been killed the last couple of days inside Syria. Let's turn to our debate topic today, and it's 2 for 2. Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney becoming the first Republican to win both Iowa and New Hampshire since the current primary system was instituted 35 years ago. However, both of those states voted for Democrat Barack Obama last time around. The next stop on the campaign trail is conservative South Carolina, where the likes of former House Speaker Newt Gingrich hope to reverse the tide. But Romney's opponents are divided between fiscal conservatives and the religious right. And more than ever, a lot depends on money. When it comes to campaign spending, we're going to see how there are the rules and there are the loopholes in the rules. On that score, only one man is better off when it comes to money than Romney, a certain Barack Obama. Today in the France 24 debate, Romney and the rest. And joining us to talk about it, Stuart Haugen of Republicans Abroad. Welcome to the show. Also with us from Democrats Abroad, Zachary Miller. From Washington, Josh Kraushaar of the National Journal. And for the outsiders looking in, not so much of an outsider since he was there on the campaign trail 4 years ago, Régis Le Sommier of French news weekly Paris Match. Welcome as always, sir. The France 24 debate, which you can follow on Facebook and on Twitter, where our handle is @FrancoisF24. Now, I'm going to begin with you, Josh Kraushaar in Washington. Let's cut to the chase here. What will it take for anyone other than Mitt Romney to win the Republican nomination at this point?
Well, first, it would take the conservative movement in the Republican Party to decide on who they want to challenge Mitt Romney, who they want to be the standard bearer for the conservative movement. And one of the big stories throughout this whole election year is that the conservative, the Tea Party movement, social conservatives, they've been divided. They don't like any of the candidates, and they've been flirting with a whole bunch of prospects, whether it's Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum, earlier on, Herman Cain, who was doing quite well in the polls, but they haven't settled on anyone. And when you look at the polling, the exit polling from New Hampshire last night, the striking result was not only was Mitt Romney doing very, very well among the moderate Republicans, the establishment Republicans, but he was doing well even with the more conservative elements in the party. So we're getting very, very late in the game. There's not a lot of time left with 2 wins in 2 contests for Mitt Romney. It really is going to be coming down to a more conservative state in South Carolina, but Romney is in very good position there as well. So the real story is the fact that Romney has gotten the support, however reluctantly, from the more conservative elements in the Republican Party.
Romney getting the support. And Stuart Haugen, do you expect the rest of the Republican field to remain divided, as was the case in South Carolina 4 years ago when John McCain won that primary?
I suspect they will, actually. And I think the big question comes down, as has been referenced here, the debate between conservative ideologies and the very, very powerful drive on the Republican side of the ledger to beat Barack Obama. I think, if I'm not putting too many numbers on the table, I think that there were almost 60% of New Hampshire voters who were undecided up to the very last. And of those people in exit polls, it looks like the vast majority of them, not the vast majority, but a significant majority voted for Mitt Romney. And the reason given most often was because they felt he was the single best candidate to beat Barack Obama. And I think this speaks to some real danger for the president, is that the voting habits are lining up to be who can beat Barack Obama ahead of whose ideology am I most closely identified with.
Zachary Miller?
Well, just to add to that, there were some other statistics last night that said during the exit polls, 1/3 of the Republican voters were unsatisfied with the candidates they have. So I think everything is still up in the air. They're voting for Romney, but they're just not. There's not that passion there. The only one that really showed any passion, the only voters that showed any passion were those of Ron Paul's. And I think the big story is the fact that Ron Paul did so well coming in second with virtually no money, considering how much money Romney has. And he's got very, very passionate followers, and that's interesting to see how that's going to play out later.
Régis Le Sommier, Isn't this incredible? Iowa, small state, New Hampshire, tiny state, and we're asking whether or not the election's over.
I think what's interesting is that the Republicans in America have finally maybe put their act together, in the sense that we've watched the debates and we've seen various figures coming up and down. We've seen Herman Cain, as you mentioned. We've seen Rick Santorum doing a nice second place in Iowa, very close to beating Romney, actually. But
is that not more a case, as Josh Kraushaar was saying a moment ago, that it's just sort of a fickle electorate at this point, that there's no one person who's satisfying?
Nobody's satisfied with any of the candidates, that's for sure. But what the Republicans are finally coming up with is that they are thinking, at this point, we have to find somebody who can beat Obama. And of course, we know the dynamics of these elections. We know you need your base, secure your base first, and then go after the electorate of the other guy. And Romney, with his sort of moderate position, can actually fill the gap, and because he will have to reach out to the other side.
And how does the New Hampshire that you see here compare with the New Hampshire where you covered the campaign 4 years ago?
Well, I covered it on the Democratic side 4 years ago, and it was Howard Dean who was making a strong show over there, and before crashing famously, and it was a bit different.
There's less snow as well.
Yeah, there's less snow. We have a reporter from Perry Match who's over there right now, and he told me it's very cold. It was really cold 4 years ago, sorry. And no, I can see what's interesting is that maybe also you were mentioning, or I don't know which one of the two is mentioning that actually Romney started appealing to more conservative elements in the Republican Party. And I saw yesterday that even some Catholics from New Hampshire started voting for Mitt Romney. We have to bear into mind, and especially in France, we don't really know who the Mormons are, but in America, it's there's still something a bit strange for a number of very harsh conservative, hardline conservative Americans, Presbyterian, even Catholic, to vote for a guy who belongs to a religion who for a long time had been considered as heretic.
He actually won the Catholic vote.
Yep.
Far ahead of Santorum, who is a Catholic.
So
I was surprised by that.
It's a sign of progress within the Republican Party.
Let me ask Josh Kraushaar on that. How much of an issue is the fact that Mitt Romney is a Mormon?
It was an issue in 2008, and when Romney went to South Carolina after losing both the Iowa and New Hampshire primaries and caucuses, that was one of the biggest oppo hits that John McCain and Mike Huckabee used against Mitt Romney, and he finished a disappointing 4th place in South Carolina. But I suspect the issues that are animating Republicans this time around are much different. And we've already heard some prominent conservative evangelical leaders who have been critical of Mormonism have come out in the past and have said, look, Romney may not be our first choice, but he's someone we can vote for, certainly against President Obama, and he wouldn't be someone they would outright oppose. And I think you're seeing a lot of that sentiment with the most conservative elements of the party, even in South Carolina, where the economy by far is the biggest issue. South Carolina, for one, has an unemployment rate about at 10%. All the cultural issues, the social issues that have been so prominent in past Republican nominating contests just simply aren't there this time around. And I suspect that you may see some opposition pieces, some mailers come out referencing Romney's Mormonism, but I think it's only going to be an issue around the edges. And if Romney can maintain his message talking about turning around the economy and sticking to the fiscal messaging that he's been doing so much of, I really suspect that he's not going to have a problem. Voters are going to overlook his religion and look at his electability and his economic handling and stewardship.
And Romney's very much on the offensive in his New Hampshire victory speech, and very much with his sights on South Carolina, attacking Republican critics as traitors, and saving his best lines for Obama and for us over here in Europe.
He wants to turn America into a European-style social welfare state. We want to ensure that we remain a free and prosperous land of opportunity. This president takes his inspiration from the capitals of Europe. We look to the cities and towns across America for our inspiration.
Stuart Houghton, what's wrong with Europe?
You can't afford your standard of living. You're already charging people too much in income tax. I pay them. I live here. I know it. And we complain here in France, or the French complain about their cost of health care, and they can't afford it any longer, and we're already taxed to the maximum. Competitivity is down. European companies are not booming right now. Europe's not booming. I think there's a big problem, and I think he's touched it.
Zachary Miller, is that a good selling point? Europe bashing?
Yeah, I think it is in America for his constituents. I think it is. I mean, we all know that Romney speaks French, but he won't speak French in front of a crowd of in a town hall in
Not
New
anymore.
Hampshire. Not anymore.
John Kerry in
Chinese
2004.
for that
No,
matter.
Huntsman has spoken Chinese.
No,
Huntsman
but-
has spoken Chinese on the debates.
Yes, he got
You know?
beaten up pretty badly for that.
Well, anyway, he's bold enough to do that.
Not a
The
smart
French
idea.
issue.
French paradox.
But getting back to the horse race, I think what's really important to look at is, will Newt Gingrich go thermonuclear? I mean, how much is he going to be on the attack before South Carolina? Newt wants to win. A month ago, Newt was telling everybody that he pretty much had it in the bag, and now it's looking down, and he's saying he's been Romney voted, and he's very upset. And people who know him, who've talked about commentators, have said, what will Newt do?
Expand on that, because I think that there are two people in the campaign who have big money who haven't used it yet.
Exactly.
And that's not outside Romney, and that is both Perry, who has a lot of money left in his bank account and not many places to spend it right now, and Gingrich, who's got this new money coming in to try and rescue his campaign. And that's all going to go down in South Carolina, I think.
Well, I think the blaming of Europe outside maybe bad memories Mitt Romney had from at the time when he was on a mission in France, and maybe
Missionary for them.
he got this the door slammed on his face maybe quite a few times. So outside of that, it's I would say it's something that really. Is always a case during the debate, during the campaign in America, whether it is John Kerry, as I mentioned, in 2004, who refused all of a sudden to speak French, and who was portrayed, I remember this famous opening by, what's the name of the guy from Texas, Tom Daly?
Tom DeLay.
Tom DeLay, who would start his speech by saying, good morning, or as John Kerry would say, bonjour. So it was French issues and French stuff has always been a punching ball over there for the campaign. The usual rhetoric. I mean, we can, we're strong in America. Europe is weak. That's pretty much in the play all the time.
The French politicians are pretty ready to tap the
Anti-Americanism,
U.S. and American state.
absolutely.
So
it's
seems
it's
to
part
work
of
politically.
And I just
love
wanna-
and hate relation.
I want to go back to a point that Zachary Miller made, which is the linguistic skills of Mitt Romney. And it's interesting because he has to tack right in South Carolina, which is conservative, and steer to the center in Florida, where ads there come in more than one language. Take a look.
Estados Unidos representa libertad, oportunidad, donde todo es posible. Soy Craig Romney. Mi padre, Mitt Romney, cree en esos valores americanos porque los ha vivido y luchará para
Josh
restaurar la
Krashauer,
grandeza de
I know
nuestra
that
nación.
you are looking ahead to the fall, and you're saying that Mitt Romney could gain a lot of traction in places like Florida against Barack Obama.
Yeah, and there was a new poll that just came out today from the state of Florida that showed Mitt Romney with a 3 to 4 point lead over President Obama, and among Latinos, among Hispanic voters, they were pretty much evenly tied up within the statistical margin of error. So Florida, as we remember from the 2000 presidential election, is a huge battleground. A lot of money from both sides is going to be spent there. And if you looked at the polling, when you look at the polling dating back to the spring, President Obama's approval rating has been stuck in the low 40s. He's had issues winning over Hispanic voters like he did back in 2008. And more broadly, the Hispanic vote is really the key to President Obama's reelection, because he's fared so poorly in the last couple of years with the working class whites, with blue collar voters, even with suburbanites. And if you talk to the people working Obama's reelection campaign, they view winning over Hispanics and getting them to turn out and register in large numbers as the biggest key to Obama eking out a second term. The Latino voters have been very wary over a lot of the Republican rhetoric on immigration. Romney himself has moved to the right on some of the big immigration issues. He came out against the DREAM Act very vocally in recent days. So the Latino vote is very, very crucial, and both parties, both candidates, are going to be aggressively positioning themselves to win them over come this year.
All right, we see that Mitt Romney changing his stance on that particular issue. Mitt Romney, who has also changed his stance on another issue that could loom very large indeed come the fall. When he in Massachusetts, even though he's born in Michigan, he lost his bid to unseat Ted Kennedy in the Senate. But then, later in 2006, when Romney was governor, he and Kennedy joined forces in getting Massachusetts to become the first state to subscribe to universal health care coverage. Mitt Romney, who says he's against Obamacare. Stuart Haugen, do you see the attack ads already?
Well, you can position that one of two ways. You can say, how can this guy come out against Obamacare? Or you can say he's been there, done that, and Romneycare in Massachusetts turned out to be the disaster that Obamacare is looking to be like right now. What Mitt Romney says, and I think what is the right positioning, is, look, we tried it in Massachusetts. We learned that's what the states are for, and that's why a national program in the United States was wrong. We should have let each state explore with a certain set of objectives of reaching universal coverage through different ways and different means. What we did in Massachusetts cost 3 or 4 times what we expected it to. It isn't working as well as it should. It's a mistake, and we ought to fix it, and Barack Obama never should have done it nationally.
Zachary Miller, Barack Obama last week saying that he's going to run on his universal health care bill. Is that a smart move?
Yes, because that's what the people wanted. They wanted a health care bill.
60%.
They want. Listen, I'm talking now, Stuart. We have 32 million people who weren't insured, now insured. We have children who didn't have health insurance, who now have health insurance. This is an important issue to a lot of American people, and it's important to our constituents. And we got it, and we want to. It's something we should be proud of. And he's not going to run away from it. And I think I didn't hear Romney running away from Romneycare in Massachusetts. Maybe he has. I haven't heard it.
He said it was a good experiment. It needs fixing, and it shouldn't have been done nationally.
Well,
I don't think he's running away from it. He's learning from it.
He's either got to say one thing and stand by it, or say the other thing.
No, you learn from your lessons.
What we have with Romney is his changing opinions like people change socks, Stuart. Every other day he's saying something different.
Zach, would you prefer to have somebody who's so stuck in their leftist rhetoric as Barack Obama, who doesn't learn from his mistakes, or would you prefer to have somebody who does learn?
Does he make mistakes every day? Because that's as often as he
Barack
changes his
Obama
opinions.
makes mistakes every day, and he's our president. I'll take somebody who learns from their errors.
What the Republicans are, what Newt is showing us is right now in his ads and the other ads that we're having with the other Republicans are showing us what our campaign is going to be when it's in the general election.
All right, a sample of things to come. When we come back, we'll look at some of those other candidates and over how much it costs to get those ads on air in the France 24 debate.
The base at Guantanamo Bay, as you've never seen it. Through the eyes of the residents of this strange no-man's land. Before it became an open-air prison, the American base employed up to 10,000 Cubans. Now, only 2 remain. Our reporters went to meet them in their villages that are surrounded by watchtowers, one of the last frontiers of the Cold War under a Caribbean sun. The Cursed History of Guantanamo, a reporter's exclusive, Thursday, 9:45 p.m. Paris time, on France 24. From January to June, our reporters and special correspondents will bring you in-depth coverage of the US primaries, live on France 24.